We keep things rolling here on the Sports Cubicle. I'm your host, Mike Mercado. I am joined with the one, the only, the legendary, the marvelous Dan Marver, and we are here to break down, to preview, to predict the 2024 NBA Finals between the 5th seed Dallas Mavericks, the Western Conference champions Dallas Mavericks, and the number 1 seed from the Eastern Conference, the Eastern Conference champion Boston Celtics. A matchup filled with NBA stars from top to bottom, and now we get a matchup where a new NBA champion will be crowned in this new crop of superstars, and it was an interesting way to get to the NBA Finals. The Dallas Mavericks took out the LA Clippers in 6 games. In 6 games, they took out the Oklahoma City Thunder, and in 5 games, took out the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Boston Celtics took out the Miami Heat in 5 games. The Cleveland Cavaliers in 5 games, and swept the Indianapolis Pacers in 4 games to get to the NBA Finals. Jason Tatum, Luka Doncic, you have Brown, you have Irving, and so many other superstars in this matchup. Marver, what did you think when the clock hit zeros in both matchups and we had our matchup for this year's NBA Finals?
Oh, a couple things. You know, they start on Thursday, June 6th, which means that Dallas has a week off, and Boston has, a month off after their last game. So, I mean, it's the way it is because ABC is televising everything, and they have to fit it into their beautiful primetime schedule in a certain way. But that's one thing that kind of bothers me is they can't move it up. But it is what it is. The big surprise to me was the Timberwolves taking out the reigning champion Denver. I thought it would be interesting to have the European matchup between Doncic and Jokic because they actually have similar styles to me. But I think that Boston might just have a little bit too much depth than Dallas. I mean, you got Kyrie Irving, and he'll go off and score and such. And I think that Boston, unless they're completely stale from this long layoff, just is rolling. I mean, they swept the conference Eastern Finals for God's sakes, and there was another surprise. I was surprised Indiana took out the Knicks, but of course Jalen Brunson was hurt in that 7th game, so that probably was a factor. So there were a couple things that happened. So the advantage of them in that regard. So Indiana, and Indiana hadn't really gotten that far since the Reggie Miller days. In the famous if you watch The Last Dance, you can see when they were the biggest threat to Jordan at one point, in the playoffs. But the way it is now, I mean, I can't imagine Dallas winning this thing. But and it starts in Boston. Obviously, they have home court, and it's I don't know if they have any room for more banners in Boston. Quite a few from the old days with Russell and the gang. But I think Boston will do it, and I don't know. I mean, I think that the interesting factor is I think they used to go 2-3-2 all the time in terms of the way it's scheduled. Now I think they do 2-2-1-1-1. So there'll be a lot of travel involved. At least it won't be coast to coast. Yeah, so that's good. And we'll see how it goes. I don't think that it's going to go a sweep, but I think that Boston will come out and hold serve at home, and then we'll see what happens after that.
So I think this is an interesting matchup when it comes to the next tier of players. We had Jonathan Hood on the show a few weeks back, and one thing we were talking about was how it's the new guard in the NBA. I mean, we saw that KD and Steph and LeBron didn't get to the second round. We're seeing all these new names emerge, like Anthony Edwards was doing, like Jalen Brunson, like you mentioned. Tyrese Halliburton was doing his thing in Indiana, of course, having an injury-riddled season before the playoffs started, but played his best, played as much as he could for the Pacers in this playoffs. Obviously with Brown and with Tatum in Boston and Luka and Kyrie in Dallas, there's superstars all over the NBA right now that are the new guard. And this is a finals where Jason Tatum or a Luka Doncic can really planting their flag on where they stand and the greatness of their era. And I think that's what's interesting about this matchup because Boston is the better team. Boston has more depth. Boston can play defense. Boston can shoot the three. Boston can blow you out. Boston could do anything. Dallas is going to be a team that was very much matchup dependent in the Western Conference. I think you saw it perfectly that Minnesota was built to beat the Denver Nuggets, and they were not set up to take on what Dallas does well. And we saw that time after time after time, especially against Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns. So I think this is very much a matchup where the better team is the Celtics, but the Mavericks, even as an underdog, has the ultimate weaponry in Luka Doncic. We're watching a superstar, a 25-year-old, make that next step in his legacy. And in these stories that are getting told, that get told about these type of players, it is this type of matchup. It is eerily similar to when the Mavericks won the NBA Finals against the Miami Heat, the heels of the Miami Heat with Bosh and Wade and LeBron. And it was, Terry and Dirk and Kidd. And Dirk. So, and with Jason Kidd there and Terry, and like there was a bunch of guys that were playing their best basketball, MVP basketball, and they got to a finals, and the superstar made legendary plays like Dirk did. That could be the case here, where Dallas goes into this series as the underdog, but Luka is just special, and Kyrie is not a stranger to this. Say what you will about Kyrie off the court, I get it, but on the court, he is an awesome point guard, and we have seen him with LeBron win an NBA Finals, being down, of all things, against a all-time great team. So Dallas is no pushover in this Finals, right, Marver?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I'll be curious to see what the ratings are like because there aren't the big names, with the Curry and the LeBron that are usually, in the finals. So, they won't. I don't think it's going to capture the nation, as much as some of the finals in the previous years. But right now Dallas is the capital of winter sports. They're going to really have to be pretty busy with the ice on the floor because the Dallas Stars are still alive in the Stanley Cup too. And I noticed that they fortunately don't have games on the same night, and that worked out really well because ABC has both the hockey finals and the basketball finals. So so I was curious to see if that hadn't been the case, how they would have handled it. But in any event, I think that it's a great thing to have some new stars, and then it'll be interesting too, as a side note, to see if Bronny gets drafted and gets to play with his father for 1 year at the Lakers.
Oh, we'll have plenty.
That's a side note.
We'll have plenty of time for that, Marver, trust me, because I know that's going to be the story heading into this NBA draft. But you bring up a great point, right, of the new guard. And this matchup has a lot of fun matchups that we can see, anywhere from P.J. Washington and Derek Jones and Daniel Gafford. Shout out to former Bull, right? And Luka Doncic and obviously Kyrie. And then Boston's side with Jason Tatum and Kristaps Porzingis, if he's able to play in this series, will be the biggest X factor for the Boston Celtics. But Jaylen Brown has been playing great. Derek White, Drew Holiday bringing that championship medal to that Boston team may be a big difference of them getting over the hump and winning an NBA Finals. And then Al Horford and the rest of the team. Like, this is a fun matchup in the NBA Finals. And I think putting feet to the fire, who are you going with? If we're just guessing right now, who wins the NBA championship in this really intriguing matchup between the Dallas Mavericks and the Boston Celtics?
I think Horford will be a challenge for Doncic, I think, in terms of that matchup in the post. So I think there'll be a key to see what happens in the series.
Who do you got winning?
Oh, Boston still. That won't be a sweep. 5 or 6 at most. I think Dallas will win a game or 2 at home, but I think the Celtics might prevail. I think they're going to hold serve, like I said, at home, and then maybe they'll give up 1 on the road or maybe 2 at most. But I think they're too strong, too deep, and even though Jason Kidd's the coach of Detroit, Dallas, he can't play, so I think they will take it on the chin from Boston.
So I will say this, Boston is deservingly the favorite. Boston needs to win this NBA Finals. If it's not this year, when is it? It is a legendary legacy franchise that has plenty of championships. It does feel like all the pressure is on them to win this one because there's certain teams in sports, when we have anointed you the champion, you must then go and win said championship to confirm everybody's predictions and everybody's thoughts. That's what Boston's facing right now. But what the Mavericks have faced this entire time was everything that happened last season. All the drama between Kyrie joining the team and whether they were mashing if you had to blow them up, to getting to this point as the 5th seed, beating the Clippers in a 6-game series, beating the number 1 seed Thunder in a 6-game series, and then beating the Timberwolves in a 5-game series with all the emotion Minnesota had coming off of beating the Nuggets in a 7-game series. The Mavericks have been against the grind for a year and a half now. I think if the Celtics aren't careful and they mess around like they've done this entire time in the Eastern Conference, The Dallas Mavericks are winning the NBA Finals in 7 games, Marver. And Luka Doncic is winning the NBA Finals, Michael Jordan's MVP. But it is going to be a lot of fun on June 6th when we get to see the tip-off of this year's NBA Finals. Marver, any final thoughts about what we're going to see between the Celtics and Mavericks?
No, it's going to be a whole new. Breen is still there, but he's got Doris Burke and J.J. Redick. It's going to be a whole new team in case people don't know who's broadcasting the finals. So there's been a big change there. No more Jackson and on the analyst side, and no more Van Gundy. So they did a big change there. So it'll be interesting to see how the broadcasting side of it goes too.
Yes, and we know that all of them are talented, so at the very least, it should be a fun product to listen to and watch. Let's hope the games deliver because it has all the makings of a wonderful NBA Finals between the Dallas Mavericks and the Boston Celtics. Jason Tatum versus Luka Doncic. We want to know your thoughts. Who wins the NBA Finals? We're on Twitter at Sports Cubicle TV. Let us know a comment down on the YouTube channel at The Sports Cubicle. And, of course, wherever you get your favorite podcast, search us at Heartland Signal, The Sports Cubicle, and, of course, sports from the couch. We got more coming up next here on the Sports Cubicle. He's the marvelous one, Dan Marver. I'm Mike Mercado. You're listening to the Sports Cubicle on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal.